Hello, Collateral Gaming listeners. Chazzle Dazzle here from the Trial by Error Variety Show podcast. I just wanted to take a few seconds to invite you guys over to what we do. No, it's not video games, but we do invite really awesome and unique bands from all over the world. We dig deep into their souls and find really cool stories to tell you, and there's tons of music every week, so subscribe to us wherever you subscribe to your podcast. We look forward to having you.
On this episode of the bonus round, we are celebrating the Metroid franchise with a discussion of our top 5 favorite boss battles from the series, followed by a mini review on the controversial title, Metroid Other M. So don't go anywhere, the show starts right now. Welcome to Collateral Gaming Bonus Round. I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And I'm Zachary Gio.
And we are podcasting straight from somewhere in South Texas and Georgia.
And Georgia, yeah.
And we are a 420 friendly podcast. So whatever you have, smoke it if you've got it. And
I've got my cart today.
oh, hell yeah, dude. Especially this month, right? I mean, it's,
oh, yeah, dude. Oh, yeah.
It's officially April. So
dude, April's one of the best months, bro. It's transitioning from winter to spring and like spring to summer. It's like not super hot, but it's not freezing anymore. It just feels nice outside, and I love this time of year. It's great, and this is also the time of year where we start getting hints for like E3 and all of this stuff coming up in the summer. It's just a very exciting time.
Clearly you haven't been in Texas in April. It just gets hot here, okay? It's just hot. That's it.
You're there.
Oh, stop. Alrighty, well, we're going to go ahead and get right into this because this is a bonus round episode.
Yeah.
So starting off, of course, we are going to be talking about our top 5 Metroid boss battles. After all, we're doing our very first numbered episode on Metroid, which is Metroid Fusion. Stay tuned for part 2, which I want to kind of release the same time I release this because we're overdue on that anyway. So,
Yep.
But I'm going to go ahead and start off with you, Zach. What's your number 5 Metroid boss battle?
Well, before I say that, I want to apologize to everybody. The reason we don't have part 2 out right now is because my laptop that I usually record the episodes with Ash on has kind of crapped out. You know, I just recently got a new PC and I've been setting everything up, but I haven't been able to get that file and recover it yet. But I promise you guys, I'm doing everything I can to get this computer to boot up one last time so that we can get it out. But that's enough sadness. Okay, so my first boss fight, well, my number 5 boss fight is actually probably going to surprise Ash. But
Okay.
it is actually the Plant Core X from Metroid Fusion. This X is in Sector 2, and this giant creature has. It looks almost like a Chozo statue covered in vines if you look closely enough. But this takes place in like the depths of the Tropic Sector in the BSL Research Station in Fusion. And defeating this creature gives you the Plasma Beam. I really love this fight so much because honestly, for me, it's one of the hardest fights in Fusion because not only do you have to continuously pelt this creature with missiles, or super missiles too, so you can run out of ammo relatively quickly if you haven't found a lot of, pickups. But you have to constantly be dodging the plant spores, the plant traps, and the plasma projectiles that the Core X is firing at you because you get the plasma beam when you beat this thing, so it's going to fight you with that ability. Like, that's a recurring thing that happens in Metroid Fusion when you are facing a creature that's going to give you an ability back. You have to learn how to fight against that ability first.
This is
And
true.
It's really cool. But this fight is difficult because you literally have to constantly be moving, and there is not a lot of room for Samus to move in this game. Or in this fight, sorry. So I really enjoy it. I love the color schemes. The setting is just awesome. The music is soft and creepy, and
Yeah, kind
it
of that
takes.
do 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 do.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's really cool. I love that whole vibe. And the first time I played through Fusion, it took me probably 10 to 15 times to get through this thing because that's one. It takes a lot of damage. You have to really lay into this thing, and all of the projectiles. Just if you're not careful, you'll die very quickly. But as long as you just stay on the platform, away from the traps in the floor, and you can dodge everything that's trying to grab you and inflict damage. If you fall in, you'll take damage. It's a tough fight, and that's why I really enjoy it. So, yeah, if you got a hot take on this boss, I'd love to hear it.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't call it one of my favorites. Honestly, it's one of the more frustrating parts in the game, but there is a sense of satisfaction once it starts shooting the plasma beams at you, and you're just kind of ducking and jumping and ducking and jumping and trying to hit at it. It's a very quick fight, I will say. You've constantly dodging its little spores everywhere is definitely adds a lot of tension to the fight. It comes out of nowhere too. This is right after you've defeated Yakuza and after an encounter with the SAX. So I mean, it's a very action oriented segment of the game, and
hmm
I remember I found it useful to just like lay a power bomb once in a while and shoot and to kill all those spores before they get to me. So I
Yep.
just like lay a power bomb, shoot a bunch, lay a power bomb, and just time it to where right around when the spores would start to hit me, it would clear the whole screen. So
That's not a. I'm sorry for cutting you off. That's actually a really good tactic. I never even thought about that, and I've
yeah,
played Fusion so many times. Okay, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna do that again. I can imagine just everybody listening to me like, how stupid is this guy
no,
for not doing that?
you know,
But it's okay. I can take it. I'm a good
Fusion
Metroid player, so.
Fusion in segments like this and like segments like the BOX fight would really benefit from the free aim system that's in Samus Returns.
Yeah, you're actually right. I will say though, it was a toss up for my number five. It was a toss up between this and the security robot.
Yeah.
Because the security robot fight, it's a cool fight. You have to hang on to the ledge, or you have to hang on to like I don't even know what those are called, but Samus hangs on to them and walks across to avoid the electrified water.
Monkey bars?
Um, I guess they're called monkey bars, but it's such a good fight because you don't face it just once; you face it twice. Well, either that or you face two different ones. I'm not exactly sure how that is, but the one in Sector 6, I think you fight the second one in Sector 6. I am so sorry, guys. And that one, it's just the music in both of those fights is really cool. So that's my little honorable mention because that was almost my number five. But what about you, Ash? What's your number five?
First, well, actually, I want to ask you, okay? Because
Okay.
now you got me thinking, right? Did you ever hang on the monkey bars when you were in elementary school and pretend that you're Samus?
No, because at the time where I started playing Fusion, I was embarrassed actually that I played video games as much as I did. So I kind of kept that a secret until middle school when I made a couple of friends and we just a couple of friends that played video games too. I'm not a loner, I promise. But and then I started hanging out with them and we started talking about it. But no, I never really did anything like that. As far as elementary school is concerned, I just tried to get through it the best I could.
I hear you. I hear you. Well,
Oh,
my number five is also from Fusion, and that's going to be the SAX battle.
ooh,
Um,
do
and I'm
elaborate.
and I'm referring to the actual boss battle. Now, obviously, the encounters throughout the game are noteworthy, but they're not really boss battles per se. But I will talk about them because and we do talk about them in our Fusion episode. But every time you face the SAX throughout the game, there are these little segments where you're completely outclassed, right?
Oh yeah.
You have no choice but to run away. At first, you want to avoid detection altogether with the SAX if possible. There's one segment right before you face the Plant Core X, like where you're talking about in Sector 2, where you're forced to encounter the SAX and you have to run away. But the final time that you confront the SAX is at the very end of the game after you've reached back to the main sector and before the final boss fight versus the Omega Metroid. There is a quick confrontation, and it is at this point where you have acquired all power-ups in this game. So if you're not ready, you're never gonna be. This is it. You're locked in the room, and for the entire game, you've been avoiding this creature, and now you have to fight it, and it's a hard boss battle. It can be over very, very quickly. You can get killed in about a minute, and so it takes some trial and error. It takes a few tries of running all the way, go back up the elevator, facing it to finally get the hang of it. I mean, basically, it's just charge shots and jumping over. And I remember we were talking about how, like, if you try to screw attack into it, it just screw attacks back at you. And the SAX is Samus at full power, and she still has the ice beam, which can completely obliterate you very, very quickly. But once you get the hang of that boss battle, it gets to be very fun, very enjoyable. I mean, I've played through it a few times now in my playthroughs of the game, and it's one of the parts of the game that I really look forward to. Not only that, but
It's
go ahead.
no, go ahead. It's okay. I just have a little side note. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say not only that, but after you face the SAX in its regular form, then you have the grotesque, monstrous form, which again just takes a couple more charge shots. That's actually the easiest part of the fight. It's like about 5 charge shots before you kill it, and then the Corax. And here's the part that makes it hard, because you need to have conserved your energy during the past 2 phases of the boss battle, and that's why this boss battle is so hard. Is not only is it just hard to get through, but you can't just barely get through the first 2 fights. You need to get through those and still have a lot of energy left to tank that Corax fight, because it's difficult to dodge those beams while shooting missiles at its eyes. And it's not one of the easy Corax where you just shoot it with missiles. It's one of those that has the fucking eye beam.
Oh yeah, and I mean this fight, like you said, this fight is intense. The only reason I didn't choose it is because I feel like I, I've done it so much that obviously everyone to me. Okay, let me try to gather my thoughts in like a little cauldron. Let me try to get over it real quick. Bad pun, sorry. But I didn't choose the SAX fight because to me it's not long enough. I feel like I feel like this fight would have been so much better if you could have just taken it across the entire research station. That's actually something I wanted to talk to you about when we do our little cover of Metroid Fusion, when we do our little remake. If we could make this battle take place over the course of the entire station, like once the fight starts, there are parts where you have to like run from her and do specific things before you can inflict damage. I want to make it really hard, bro,
Oh, that would be badass.
I mean, it's a really hard fight. If you have if you have all of the energy tanks, I don't remember specifically how many there are. I think there's like maybe 20. I don't know.
Something like
But
that.
when you have 20 energy tanks and you face this thing, she can kill you in 5 charge shots. 5. That's ridiculous. And so that if you don't have max energy, you're even more screwed if you take a hit. So it's a good thing that you mentioned like conserving or conservation, because that does make this fight very difficult, and it's really fun to be able to finally stand toe to toe with this thing that's been kind of hunting you the whole game, and finally beating it. And once you beat it, of course, you start the propulsion sequence. You have 3 minutes to get down there, and then you face the Omega Metroid, and it actually saves your life, because overall, the main focus of the X is to rid itself of Metroids, because Metroids are the main predator to the X. So once the Saix realizes that Samus isn't nearly as much of a threat as the Omega Metroid, it kind of saves your life. Gets killed by the Omega Metroid, and then you're finally able to go back to being at full power. And I think that is just absolutely phenomenally done, and it's great. But there is a lot of stuff that you and I could tweak for that Saix battle. Or, yeah, SAX, sorry.
Yeah, it's definitely a very tense battle. Kind of reminds me of the Dark Samus battle at the end of Prime 2.
Okay.
Which is actually on a timer, so it's again a very fast-paced battle against a doppelganger. So, but what's going to be your number 4?
Okay, so I know I told you that I wasn't going to pick a boss from this game, but after thinking about it and really, really, just sitting on how I feel about this, It's one of my favorite fights in the entire series, even though the game isn't that great. So my number 4 is the Metroid Queen from Other M.
Okay.
This fight is awesome. It has several faces. It has several phases, but before you can even really focus on the queen, she has a bunch of Metroids that are chasing you around the room. Now, this is the first time in the game, except for the baby in Sector Zero. This is the first time in the game that you actually have to fight, and well, you don't have to fight the baby.
No.
Adam kind of saves you, but this is the first time in the game where you actually have to fight and take out some Metroids. And at this point, you're basically at full power, but the way that the way that the fight starts, you see Ridley's dead body in the corner, and you hear this giant gate opening up because Melissa Bergman is terrified of you, so she locks herself in the room and like lets the Metroid Queen out essentially because she thinks that Samus is a threat, and so you have to fight this thing. But in the first phase of the fight, the Metroids are going to attempt to grab you and drain your life, because that's what they do. If they latch on, you just enter a morph ball and lay a bomb. And you can also, because of Metroid Other M's ability to sense move, Samus can sense move in this game, you can constantly sense move to avoid the attacks. But because of the frequency at which you have to sense move, you're barely left with an opportunity to, fight back. You just constantly have to dodge. And in this fight, normally with Metroids, you can just freeze them and blow them up with a missile. But these Metroids are tough. In this fight, killing Metroids is a 3-step process. You have to get them to fight you. You have to get their attention. And then once you do, you have to sense move at the last second, and that will leave them vulnerable to a charged beam shot. So you have to sense move, charge your beam, and freeze the Metroid.
And then you get a chance to charge beam up real fast because the sense move allows you to charge faster.
Mm-hmm. And if you've gotten all of the XL charges, it'll happen even quicker. And then once they freeze, hit them with a super missile. Not regular missiles won't do it in this fight. You have to use a super missile, and it's ridiculous.
I would use the seeker missile with the super missile functionality, and the diffusion beam comes in handy here because you can charge shoot the group of them, and then they'll all get frozen with the ice beam, and then you can charge up a super missile, and you'll kill one of them while also sending seeker missiles out to the others.
But they're kind of merciful because with this being like kind of a final boss, you only have to deal with like 6 or 7 of them, and once they're all done, you can focus on the queen. But the queen is big, and this is a relatively small room, so it's really difficult. So you have to dodge the queen's physical attacks with your sense move. You can't really dodge the beam attack, so you have to space jump over it to avoid it, which is hard because, like I said, it's a very small room. Basically, you have to consistently unleash charge shots while waiting for a good opportunity to hit the crystals on the queen's neck, and you do that with seeker missiles. Like you just said, you use the seeker missiles to pop off those crystals.
Right.
And after you weaken the crystals, it'll take a few more seeker barrages to destroy them all. And once you do that, she'll shift her tactics. And of course, once this happens, it'll go to a little cutscene in first person. And this is where the game pays homage to Return of Samus. Because once she flips over, she will open her mouth and you can grapple beam into the mouth. Pull yourself inside. If you don't drop a power bomb quickly, and this is the first time in the game you actually get to see the devastation.
And it doesn't tell you, by the way. You'd think there would be like an on-screen cue, like hold down 1 for a power bomb. It doesn't do it. It just you just have to kind of figure it out.
Yeah, which I died like 2 or 3 times at that part because I had no idea what to do because I'd never played Samus Returns or Return of Samus at this point, and so I got killed several times. But once you jump in there, lay the power bomb, and she's done. This will unleash a very, very, very long cutscene that should not exist. But it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I kind of wish that the Metroid Queen had been the final boss, but at the same time, the 3D fight with Fantoon is really cool when you're going back to get Adam's helmet because he gave his life to save you, and
The Fantoon boss fight is hard too. You have to constantly dodge shit.
Oh yeah, sense move constantly. But yeah, that's my number 4. I had to think about it a good bit, but the cinematography, like Samus's backflip the first time that the queen like attacks her is awesome because this is really the first time in the game where you see Samus as Samus the way she's supposed to be, because this game does a good job of making you think that Samus sucks and she's just scared of everything. Especially her encounter with Ridley, that I just
Ah!
want to throw up thinking about it. But this is the first time you see Samus in her full glory. She's like, okay, let's go. So that's my number 4. What do you have to say about this bad queen? I was gonna say bad boy, but it's not a boy at all. It's
I
a queen.
I think it's one of the most cinematic fights in the series. I do really love the whole grapple beam sequence and then using the power bomb, which is interesting because in Return of Samus, there are no power bombs. You just had to lay a shit ton of morph ball bombs.
Yep.
But Samus Returns kind of uh, reintroduced the power bombs. It's very interesting that you brought up the Metroid Queen as your number 4 because the Metroid Queen is also my number 4, but instead specifically the version of the fight from Samus Returns and from Return of Samus.
Okay.
And the two are kind of different. In the original game, Return of Samus, which, like you said, Other M pays homage to because the whole laying bombs in the stomach thing is actually a secret of that boss battle. Your the typical route is to just shoot a shit ton of missiles into the queen's mouth and just keep going. But there is a point in the fight where the Metroid Queen will lay down and open her mouth, and you can pop in there and lay a bunch of bombs. It's a secret. It's a secret way to defeat her, and I think you do that about 5 times, and the queen is destroyed. Now, Samus Returns ends up incorporating both of these aspects into the boss fight. So you do have to pop quite a few super missiles into the queen's mouth while dodging a bunch of its attacks, which are a lot harder now. And I do feel like they drew a little bit of inspiration from Other M and adding some more of the
Oh,
queen's
yeah.
abilities. You have to make effective use of the spider ball even to avoid getting sucked into its breath attack or to avoid getting hit by certain attacks.
Yep.
And then there is a point where you have to use, once again, the grapple beam to pull the queen's mouth down in this case, and then you can pop into its mouth and lay a power bomb. And you have to do that at least about 3 times, and then eventually the queen goes down. But I just wanted to add this boss fight to the list, not only because it's the most powerful form of a Metroid, and we only get to see it in 3 games of the series, but also because of the whole fact that there was a whole secret way of defeating the Queen Metroid in the original game. And I think that that's really cool.
Well, I don't really have too much to say about this one. I am currently working on Samus Returns, and I never played Return of Samus, but I am very excited to get to that point in the game because Samus Returns is beautiful. Like, I am absolutely loving the way it feels on the 3DS. I'm loving the way that the game flows. It kind of makes me want to go back and play Return of Samus, but at the same time, I feel like, you know, I just
Yeah, it's kind
if
of
I've got Samus,
unnecessary because
yeah, I've got Samus Returns, so I don't know if I'm going to go back. But I know I should. I'm a dedicated Metroid fan, and I don't want to take flack from everybody just because, it doesn't matter. I'll play it at some point in my life, just not today.
hey, I played it once. I don't know if I'd ever go play it again. Maybe.
Yeah.
It just kind of feels like Samus Returns is just objectively better, but they're completely different games. It's like comparing Metroid 1 versus Metroid Zero Mission, but still, after Zero Mission came out, how many people really go back and play Metroid 1 now? It's so antiquated.
Not many. I mean, Zero Mission is way better, and let's be honest, uh, you get that little end at the end of the game with Chozodia. I was watching a video about the timeline of this game, and
Yeah.
they didn't even talk about the first Metroid. They just talked about Zero Mission. It was pretty great. I mean, because Zero Mission is just a classy little remake.
Well, it's the canonical version of the game, and Samus Returns is now the canonical version of the events of Metroid 2 Return of Samus. So in the timeline, those games actually take precedence now. Technically speaking, Metroid 1 and 2 are no longer canon because the other games are now canon over them.
That makes me sad.
but
But at the same time, you gotta do something.
yeah, exactly. What about your number 3?
Okay, so I will go ahead and be honest. Well, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. I'll just let you guys experience it because honestly, everybody knows that this is my favorite Metroid title, and it will be until Nintendo releases another showstopper. But my number 3 is a fight from Metroid Prime, and this is I love this fight, man. It's Thardus. I
Yeah.
love Thardus so much. Thardus is an experiment by the space pirates to try to take inanimate objects and bring sentience to them. And when the project did not, let me try to look up really quick what the name. That's the plus side of me getting a new computer, people. I can literally do all of this while I'm recording. But let me look up the name of the project that was Thardus, because it was a space pirate project to take inanimate objects and make them sentient creatures to help fight for them. And when it didn't work out, they put Thardus in the quarantine cave. And this was okay. So this was their way of keeping him charged with Phazon because of the amount of Phazon on Talon 4. But they also kept him in here so that he couldn't get out and cause destruction. And so when you go in there as Samus, he realizes that someone's in there and he comes to life, and you have to fight him. I love this fight because you get the Spider Ball for it, and Spider Ball in Metroid Prime is beautifully executed. I absolutely love it. And okay, so I've just pulled it out. Okay, so it says that Thardus is an enormous rock monster charged with Phazon energy that inhabited Talon 4 in the Phendrana Dress, yada yada. It's called Project Titan. That's what it was. It was originally an experiment by the space pirates to use Phazon to create sentient creatures out of inanimate objects, but was found quarantined in a cavern in Metroid, yada yada yada. It's really cool. I love this fight because it makes good use. It provides good use of the thermal visor. You have to find the weak spot on Thardus, waylay into it, and then that opens up the opportunity for you to actually do damage. Once you finish, putting enough shots into that weak spot, it'll open it up to where it'll turn blue and it's exposed. You don't have to use the thermal visor to find it anymore. You can lock onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. You can do damage. That's one really cool thing about Thardus, is that he uses the Phazon in his body to mess with your lock-on system. You can't really lock onto him unless you're in the thermal visor and you find that weak spot. And I love it because the music is absolutely insane. It's one of the first tracks in Metroid that doesn't. I don't know if you'll get this, Ash, you might, but it's one of the first tracks in Metroid that doesn't use a 4/4 time signature, and I love it because it's complex, and it's really cool. But you actually fight this creature in you actually fight this creature in 2 different games, and it's mentioned in the Metroid Prime comic series as a Chozo. You get a Chozo artifact or Samus gets a Chozo artifact in the comics for beating this creature. You get the Power Bomb in Metroid Prime Pinball, and in Metroid Prime you get the Spider Ball. What are your feelings about our friend Thardus?
Definitely one of the highlights of the game. It's one of the boss battles that you remember, along with, for instance, like Flagra and the Parasite Queen at the beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of one of those more, kind of one of the more memorable moments in the game. And it's actually the moment in the game that I'm at in my playthrough right now in hyper mode. I haven't beat Thardus in hyper mode yet. I'm actually working on it. The last time I picked up Metroid Prime, which wasn't too long ago, when I was preparing for the Metroid Fusion episode, I was going back and playing several of the games, and I made it through the Space Pirate Research Facility area, which, by the way, is one of the best moments of that game. But right after that, you face Thardus, and it's hard. I remember I was constantly running out of missiles because trying to shoot super missiles at his weak point basically depleted me. Now, he shoots those rocks at you, which you can use to get pickups, but it's kind of difficult to do.
Oh, yeah, 100%. They're very hard to hit, and they kind of home in on you, so you have to constantly be moving.
And the motherfucker freezes you.
Yes, he does, but you can tap B to quickly break free. But no, one of the coolest aspects of that fight is when he kind of gets pissed and he rolls up into a ball and starts rolling around the arena, and you have to quickly change into your morph ball and boost ball like a crack addict. It is insane, and it's really cool. There's also one part you get like halfway through the fight, and he gets angry and starts summoning a blizzard, which makes it really, really hard to see unless you're in the thermal visor. But once you break that weak spot in the thermal visor, it overloads the thermal visors where you can't see anything. And so you have to try and guess where he's at inside the snowstorm, and it's just intense. I absolutely love that fight, and it's my number 3. So you guys know that I have a lot of love for
Sure.
the next 2 that are coming up. But what about you, Ash? You got anything else on Thardus, or what's your number 3?
On Thardus, I mean, he's like I said, one of the more standout bosses of the game. Definitely one of the moments that I remember in Metroid Prime in a very difficult battle, particularly in hyper mode.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy the fact that you get the spider ball afterwards because that's kind of one of the turning points in the game. That's really where Metroid Prime starts coming together. I think is following that boss fight. My number 3 is also going to be from Metroid Prime. In fact, it is the titular character, Metroid Prime, who is
Ooh.
the final boss fight. Now, Metroid Prime has 2 phases, and more so, I like the first phase just because I love the idea of having to switch between different beams and being able to finally actually use all of your charge combos. It's one of the moments in the game where you just want to lay into it and in utilizing every charge combo, especially the ice spreader, right? Because it's a
Yep.
Metroid, actually comes in handy. But I like that the Metroid Prime isn't always susceptible to ice. It's one of the few Metroids that, like the ones in Other M, ends up developing sort of an immunity to it, except when it is in the ice mode. And I like how you have to roll in between its legs or tentacles or whatever the fuck. You roll in those little tunnels underneath it. I love how cinematic the fight is, where Samus keeps running down and you go deeper and deeper and deeper. And then finally, the inside, after you fight, destroy the exoskeleton, then you fight the Metroid Prime core. And
Yep.
that's where you actually have to stand in these pools of Phazon and just load Phazon into it. And the screen actually says hyper mode on it, which is a foreshadowing of the events of Metroid Prime 3.
Yep.
And I believe you have to end up making use of both the thermal and the X-ray visors in this fight, right?
Oh yeah. You have to switch between the two because he changes, I guess, his frequency at which he's resonating at.
Right.
But every time you do damage to him, he'll eventually get upset and create this little pool of Phazon that Samus has to step in. But before you're able to step in the pool of Phazon, he keeps releasing increasingly hard Metroids. It starts with baby Metroids, then it goes to Hunter Metroids, and once you're closing in on the end of the fight, he starts releasing Fission Metroids.
So get ready to
Which,
use some power bombs.
oh yeah, dude, every time I play through Metroid Prime now, I always 100% it,
Yeah.
and I just have to. I know where all the energy tanks are. That's not really a flex. I feel like everybody who plays this game knows where all this stuff is. But the power bomb expansions are so important in this game. It's ridiculous. You have to make sure that you are well kitted to face those Metroids because yes, you can take the time to switch between the beams, but during this entire sequence while you're fighting the Metroids, Metroid Prime's not going to let up. He's like, "You're in my lair now, honey," and
Yeah.
so you gotta drop those power bombs quickly, get rid of these Metroids, and just continue on about your day. So it's a good fight. I really like it. The music is really good. I don't like the music in the first segment, but I like the music in the second segment. I don't like the fight. As far as the fights go, I don't like the second segment, but I love the first segment.
It uses that title theme too in the second segment, right? The
Yep.
that classic Metroid title theme, and yeah, and I love the Metroid Prime remix of that theme.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in that fight you're also wearing the Phazon suit, which is why you're able to stand in pools of Phazon and fire it, by the way. What's interesting is the Phazon suit is actually kind of superior to the PED suit, which comes on later on, and I kind of attribute that as the Phazon suit was a complete accident. It was a fluke, and the Federation was not able to replicate it, and that's why
Oh
Samus
yeah.
takes damage and has to inject energy tanks with the PED suit. But I also like how Metroid Prime takes the Phazon suit away from you, explaining why Samus doesn't have that in later games. Although it doesn't explain why she doesn't have the gravity suit, but whatever. And then Metroid Prime ends up becoming the main antagonist of the entire trilogy because Metroid Prime is Dark Samus. And with the net knowledge that you gain later on in Metroid Prime 3, you then find out that a Leviathan had impacted both Talon 4 and Ether, and so Metroid Prime was the Leviathan Guardian, not unlike the ones that you face at the end of each planet in Prime 3, and that Emperor Ing was the Guardian of the one on Dark Ether.
Oh yeah. Dude, I like it, but at the same time, I kind of wish that they had just made. I I like. Do you like Dark Samus? Like,
I like Dark Samus. I think it's very interesting. Again, Samus faces a few different doppelgangers in her time in the Metroid series, and Dark Samus, I think, is one of the more compelling ones. I mean,
yeah,
she did end up making it into Smash. And what's cool about Dark Samus is, like I said, Dark Samus is Metroid Prime, just with Samus's Phazon suit and
yep.
constantly evolving, to the point where even its physical appearance changes in between Prime 2 and Prime 3.
Oh yeah, I guess I like it, but I kind of wish that there's no explanation for how Dark Samus get. Oh, this is something we'll have to talk about more in detail later. We gotta move on to number point, but Dark Samus dies at the end of Prime 2. There's no way that she escaped Dark Ether or Dark Aether, and I just 100%. That always boggles me. Like, why is she in Prime 3? Like, why? I feel like they could have stopped at Prime 2 and just made a completely different um,
Or
3D
at least
game.
included a post credit scene like they did at the end of Prime, foreshadowing Dark Samus. You know,
Yeah, I
if
mean,
they'd
they
include
even.
some kind of post credits like, "Hell, here, this is Dark Samus is still alive."
Yeah. I just. Yeah, oh, man, don't even get me started. Okay, I guess I'm going to move on to my number two.
All right.
All right. So my number two is also from Metroid Prime. It is Meta Ridley. I love Meta Ridley so much because you know from the very beginning of the game that you're going to fight this dude. He is literally in the space pirate frigate, basically watching over you as you're at the beginning of the game, and right before he's the one that does the damage that causes the explosion that
Hmm.
causes Samus to lose all of her powers. The second time you see him in the game is when you're walking out of a door in the top of the first room of Phendrana Drifts. You just see his shadow cast over this wide shadow, just going over. And the first time I saw that, fear entered my heart because I thought I was about to fight him. And you just look up and you see him soaring across the sky, and you don't see him again until the very end of the game. Once you collect all 12 of the Chozo artifacts and you're getting ready to go into the Impact Crater to fight Metroid Prime, he comes in really quick, destroys the artifact temple, and you have to fight him. The music is awesome. It is one of the most iconic Ridley themes or Metroid themes in the entire series, to me, at least. And just his barrage of attacks. Like, he has a laser beam that he fires across. He'll fly over and drop little bombs. He will fly around to the point where you can't shoot him, but you can see him in the distance. Which honestly, that little part's a momentum killer, but it's awesome cinematically because you get to watch
Yes.
him kind of fly around and kind of pinpoint, okay, how am I going to take this bitch out? This is hard. And Samus is just watching him. And when he comes back, you eventually destroy his wings, and then that's where the fight gets really hard because you basically have to fight him with hand-to-hand combat. But since there is nothing like that in Metroid Prime, you just have to avoid his attacks and continue to barrage him. You have to wait for him to open his mouth to give you a weak point to where he'll like back up and open up his chest.
Yes.
And this whole time, this music is just going. And the further you, or the closer you get to beating him, the less damage you do. I swear it feels like it takes forever to beat Meta Ridley, and it's just intense the whole time. You can die easily, and it's just a really, really good fight that sums up this giant climactic buildup that you know is coming.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. It was almost my number one, but my number one, I have a good explanation as to why it's number one, and I'm ready to share it. But Ash, what are your thoughts of Metal Ridley? Just kidding, Meta
Better.
Ridley.
Okay, first off, props to the very first game to take the Ridley fights in the Metroid series and bring it into 3D, because they did a phenomenal job. And Ridley fights in Metroid games always are a breath of fresh air, because typically there's not as much strategy to them as much as just kind of laying into him and wasting all of the super missiles and missiles in your inventory and just going, and he usually takes a while. He's a tank. You just keep going and keep going and keep going. I do like that there is a little bit more strategy implemented in his appearances in the Prime series, particularly his. I'll go off on a tangent here because one of my honorable mentions is the Meta Ridley fight in Corruption. Not the Omega Ridley fight I'm talking about, but the Meta Ridley fight at the beginning of the
Yeah.
game when because it's just one of the coolest, again, cinematic moments. Samus is just sort of, Samus and Ridley are just sort of falling down the shaft, and you have to fight him. So there's a timer going, which is basically the altitude meter. And so you're just like going deeper, 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 and you're just fighting him. And Samus doesn't give a fuck. I mean, these are two rivals just going at it, just locked into each other
She
to the
wants him
death.
dead.
Yes. And before that, you've kind of got this sequence where you're in these morph ball tunnels and he's attacking you, and it's actually one of the highlights of Metroid Prime 3, I think.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. Okay. This is a hot take, and I apologize to everybody that I offend here. I despise Metroid Prime 3. I think it
I
is
know
a
you
game
do.
that never should have happened. It is a game that takes the Metroid Prime formula and completely throws it out the window and shoves linearity in your face. Now, I know that the first two Prime games are also linear. Don't get me wrong. Don't attack me in whatever we have that constitutes as a comment section. But I cannot stand this game. However, the opening sequence on Norion, where you're trying to stop the Leviathan seed from crashing into it, which you do, which is great. Samus is able to activate the planetary defense system right as she passes out from Dark Samus's attack, and that's a really cool opening sequence.
Damn,
It's
they've
great.
disabled the planetary defense system.
Damn, damn, they're after the planetary defense.
You know
system.
what? You know what? He's a fucking Chad, all right. But
Dude, I think that Admiral Dane's going to be one of the antagonists in Prime 4.
Admiral
along with
Dane
Silex.
is way better than Adam Malkovich. Don't at me.
No, he most certainly is. Now, to be fair, they really did crap on his character with Other M.
Yeah.
He's a good character. He's one of my favorites in Fusion. Like him and Samus are, well, to be fair, him and Samus are pretty much in Fusion. But
and it's not Adam Malkovich, it's Adam Malkovich's consciousness as an AI.
well, I would still consider it Adam Malkovich. But to piggyback off of what you said, man, that opening Meta Ridley fight is dope. And it's cool because, God, what's his name? Rundus. Rundus comes in and saves you at the bottom of the generator right before you hit the ground. And you've defeated Ridley again, but guess what, ladies and gentlemen? He comes back. And that's another honorable mention of mine. While I don't like Prime, the Omega Ridley fight is awesome. The opening cutscene, when you drop down in the seat, he flies in, lands in front of Samus, and they are staring at each other face to face, and Samus is just looking at him with the meanest mug I've ever seen while walking backwards. He doesn't attack. She goes into morph ball mode, rolls around, comes out of morph ball mode, looks at him, aims her arm cannon at him, and that's when the fight starts. And that is so dope. And the fight is awesome, and then the final boss is...
Yeah, whatever. Rundus is actually, I want to bring that up as kind of an honorable mention too, because that is a fun boss fight. And it's the first time where you have to face one of your friends in the game. And Rundus was actually kind of one of the most likable out of the trio. And you have to fight him. And then the music is epic. It's like a 3-phase boss battle. That's cool. I guess
I will say,
yeah.
all of the phase-on corrupted allies of Samus, Gandreda, Gore, and I almost said Thardus, Rundus, they're all really cool because they do have sort of a special connection to Samus. They're all working together on this team, even though the first time she meets them is at the beginning of the game. One of the first interactions she has with them is walking into the control room and seeing herself.
Yeah.
And she's confused. She's like, what? And
What?
Gandreda starts laughing.
Nani?
Admiral Nani? Monchiku. All right, so but I actually don't know if I said anything. But Admiral Dane's like, Gandreda, enough, kind of like in a playful voice, and she starts laughing. And Samus gets to meet them, and then they're all sent on their way. That is one thing Corruption did well, is the storytelling with the 3 corrupted beings, and I like how they spread them out, one for each area. You fight Rundus on Brio, you fight Gore on Elysia, and you fight Gandreda in the home world.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool sequence, but it's just the things you have to do in that game. I think Brio and Elysia are both the reasons that I hate that game. They're both just slogs of trips. They're just it's so boring going through them. But the homeworld, the pirate homeworld, is dope. That's the best part of the game, and that's when the game actually starts getting to be a lot of fun. The Dark Samus fight is actually a good time.
You don't like Skytown?
No, not
I
really.
love that whole like steampunk aesthetic. It's so cool.
I mean, I love the setting and the aesthetic. It's beautiful. It's just the way it's laid out and the things that you have to do. I do think it's cool. You know what? I may have to rethink my overall opinion of corruption because there are a lot of good parts of the game, like defending. I know that's not what we're talking about, but this is a bonus round, so who gives a fuck?
Who gives
So,
a fuck?
I know. Plus, I just hit the cart, so I'm feeling good. So,
Hey.
so there's a
So
lot of honorable stuff. Stop. There's a lot of honorable stuff to talk about in this game. It's just Brio and Elysia going through Skytown. I mean, there's a few cool parts, but overall, it's just like, how did the Metroids get where they were when you're going to get Seeker missiles? How did those Metroids get there in Skytown of Elysia, and how are they like infused with Phazon
Chozo?
so much so the Chozo did it?
Space pirates?
Chozo pirates?
Chozo
Space-
pirates?
Chozo Space Pirate Zos Prime. I don't know.
Who knows?
But-
It's always the fucking Chozo, okay? The Chozo are
suck,
behind
man.
everything.
They are
They've
just
been to
the
every
worst.
planet. They're a part of every ecosystem somehow. They visited. The Chozo are behind
they really
everything.
are, bro. It's
Um,
awful.
my number 2 before we start just geeking out on Metroid and waste another 30 minutes on a mini review of Prime 3. My number 2 is the Nightmare fight from Metroid Fusion. Specifically from Metroid Fusion. The other M1 is okay. It's pretty good. But I'm here to talk about the fight from Fusion because, God, it is such a tight fight. I love how Nightmare just kind of comes up out of the ground and he's freaky as fuck. You've got this scary ass mask on him and he's kind of phasing in out of reality and he's fucking warping the gravity around you. So you launch a few missiles at him. That's the first phase out of the way, right? And then your missiles stop working. And the trick to that is actually charge shots or getting in really close and hitting him with missiles. But he'll actually deflect your missiles using his gravity bending powers. And you can't space jump anymore while he's manipulating gravity. And then after you destroy the gravity manipulator underneath him, it kind of goes back to then you just start ramming his face with missiles. And that's actually the hardest fight is that phase 3 where, I find it easiest to just hang on the ladder and then as he's coming at you to bam, 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 bam. But as soon as he gets really close to you and you dodge him, then he starts warping around the screen kind of almost randomly. And it's very difficult to avoid him. You have to space jump around very intricately. And him ramming into you can take a lot of your energy away. But I like how the more that you just propel missiles into his face, that mask starts breaking and the ooze starts coming out. And, and then at the very end, of course, there's a Core X fight like every other boss battle in Fusion.
Yeah, I really like the Nightmare fight. It's definitely the creepiest fight in the entire game, and the build up for it is really good because you're running through a destroyed Sector 5 while the screen in the game itself is just rumbling, and you see his shadow moving super quickly in the background. It's intense.
The fight is foreshadowed early on in Sector 5, I remember. You see this creature in the back, and you're like, I'm going to have to fight that later, aren't I?
You also get like a tidbit of information about it from Adam eventually, because he's like, be careful, there's like this creature that's in Sector 5 that nobody knows much about right now. And then you start seeing bits and pieces of it, and you're like, oh, I'm going to have to fight this thing. It's definitely one of the better fights in the game.
Dude, I wish that we had like a scan system or something in Fusion. Maybe we should implement that because can you imagine getting like some lore about the background of Nightmare like we did with a lot of the bosses in the Prime series?
Yeah, I mean, we could do that. That would be a really cool idea. Although I'm sure Nintendo has definitely dropped lore about him, so we could probably just take from that.
I just want to know why this thing was created, What is it?
Oh yeah.
Is this like some experiment gone wrong? You don't know. It's a mystery, but it's cool. It's just such a fun, not only is it creepy, but it's also a fun boss battle. And it's very difficult.
Yes, it is. It is insanely difficult, and I have mad respect for it because of that. You have to really take a couple times before you can do it cleanly because he's very big and the room is very small. He changes very quickly from ground attacks to the wall attacks while you're hanging on that sideways monkey bar. I love that we're calling it a monkey bar, by the way, because that's definitely not a monkey bar, but it's close.
A sideways monkey bar is a ladder, Zach. That's what it's called.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, the nightmare fight's really cool. It's very creepy, very well done, very awesome aesthetic in the room, and it's a good fight.
You know what you should have said there? This would have been
Your
a
mom?
perfect segue. You should have gone, I don't want to talk about it. But I do want to talk about my number one. or we could do it ad read. But I do want to talk about Squarespace.
Okay, we're gonna have to cut that out. Yeah, I don't think we're actually allowed to mention Squarespace or anything like that legally. So we might have to cut that out, unless I'm wrong.
There's no profit in here. This is fine.
Okay.
I'm not making any money.
Oh, we will eventually.
Eventually. But we're not making any money on this episode. It's not monetized.
Nope. Not yet. It won't happen.
Or maybe I'll just bleep it out.
Okay. That would be hilarious. Please do.
Alrighty. What's your number one?
All right. So for my number one, I don't know if this will surprise you because you and I have talked about this fight quite a lot. I love this fight. It's my favorite fight in the entire Metroid series, hands down. Every time I get there, even today, I'm 24 years old and I still kind of get nervous when I walk in this room because the whole game has led up to this point. And of course, it's not the end of the game, but the whole game you've been learning about Phazon and you've been researching it. You've been
I know where this is going.
You've been going through the Phazon mines, which is you can't argue with this. It is the scariest part of the entire game, going through the Phazon mines, because you have no idea what's in store for you. There is so much happening. Oh boy. Once you get there, the first thing you see is the main quarry, okay? I will get to my number one in a second, but I can expand upon this a little bit. The first thing you see is the main quarry, which has this massive Phazon mining tool, which is a crane that's holding this giant spider ball track, okay? Obviously, you guys know that I'm talking about Metroid Prime right now. And my Metroid battle that is sitting at the top of my list is the Omega Pirate.
Yes.
There is no fight in the series that gets me as excited, pumped up, or just nervous as this guy. Because at this point, you've been fighting space pirates, you've been fighting elite troopers that take specific beams. The space pirates are ruthless in this game, and I love it. Because you're fighting these elite troopers that take specific beams. Once you get to the Phazon mines, you start seeing these elite pirates that are these experimental fighting space pirate warriors that are being held in containers for like a stability or something like that. But once Samus shows up, you start reading all this lore. The hunter is here, and so the space pirates are preparing for you to come because you are their mortal enemy, because you are the one that has taken their kind out. You just kick their ass every single time, and they hate you for it. Once you get to the end of the Metroid Quarantine Bay, which is arguably very intense and scary because there's a lot of Metroids that you have to deal with, you use your plasma beam to melt the switch above this plasma door. Make sure you save your game right before this because you're gonna get your ass handed to you if this is your first time. I'm just telling you. You walk in this door and you see this giant containment unit with this massive space pirate. And my first reaction, Ash, my jaw dropped. I was like, I'm about to have to fight that thing. Holy crap. And this arena is massive.
Yeah.
It's this giant container room that's got these 4 pools of Phazon around it. And so you have to avoid those. And this giant container which has this Omega Pirate. Once you scan it, it's like source code 3187 creature log update or creature log added to logbook. Omega Pirate. The elite unit of the space pirate forces. The most dangerous adversary to face. Be very cautious. This creature uses Phazon to charge its attacks and can go invisible to heal. And so you already know you're going to have to use your X-ray visor. Once the fight starts, the music kicks in once you get close enough to the container, and Samus is looking up at this creature, and she's just standing there looking at it. And once his eyes come alive, she immediately points her arm cannon at him. He gets angry, starts thrashing around, breaks out of the container, and Samus doesn't budge. All of this broken glass is just falling around her, and she's just staring this creature in the face, ready to fight it. And then it immediately goes to first person. They do not waste time with the cutscene. It immediately goes to first person shooter. or first person view, and you are staring up at this giant creature, and it is slowly walking towards you, holding up this tractor beam ready for anything you have to fire at it. It is one of the most intense fights in the series. You have to attack its arms and legs and destroy them. Once you destroy all 4 of his limbs, he'll go invisible to heal while summoning a force of elite pirates to come after you, or like upgraded space pirates, the ones that take specific beams. I just ignore them, but you can kill them if you want. Turn on your X-ray visor and continue strafing and dodging around the room so you're not going to get hit. And then you'll hear him appear. It does this little noise or something. That sounded more like a duck. But he'll appear, and this is where you just lay into him. And this is where you can do damage. His core is exposed. He's vulnerable, but he's invisible to the naked eye. So you have to activate your X-ray visor.
You could finish him off pretty quickly at this part with super missiles, right?
Not super missiles. You need all of the missile beam upgrades that come with it. The number 1 item to use against this creature is the ice spreader. You find this item underneath one of the bridges in the Magmore Caverns. It's right next to that giant room with the door that leads to the plasma beam, and it has all the cameras and like that central tower station that's in it. And you have to climb it to the first time you go to Phendrana Drifts and use the boost ball.
Right.
You get the ice spreader from underneath that bridge by blowing it up with a power bomb. And this thing uses 10 missiles and the ice beam to send a giant wall of ice at whatever it hits. And if you hit the Omega Pirate's core with 1 ice spreader shot, it does 25 damage. Or 25% damage.
Nice.
It takes a 1/4 of his health. You can do that twice in one setting. Once you hit him once, he'll disappear and reappear on the other side of the map. You hit him with another one and then do the whole process over again. That's it. It's done. But the fight is intense. You have to dodge space pirates. You have to break him down before you can do damage to him. It is a long, difficult fight. And at the end of it, the cutscene is incredible. You're looking up, staring at this weakened Omega Pirate. He has nothing left, and he falls dead on the ground. But Samus doesn't have time to move, and he falls on her, encasing her in organs and phazon. And she is just cooking in this radioactive phazon to the point where she can't handle it, because phazon is a harmful substance to you at this point.
Yeah.
But you are literally surrounded, embodied, caked in it. So much so that her very suit gets infused with it, and she comes out shining in a sleek black armor with orange overtones and an orange visor. And in the original GameCube version of the game, she does this wicked pose where she's just struggling. She's just struggling to contain it, and once she does, she finally resets with her arm cannon. But in the trilogy version, she just is standing there, kind of triumphantly, like she just beat it, and then you get a Phazon suit, and that provides immunity to Phazon. And that, you could probably just hear by my rant just then how passionate I am about that fight and how much I love this game because of it. This game takes isolation and truly, truly leaves you alone. You have nobody to talk to, nobody to give you help. You're just searching this planet for answers, trying to find Ridley, because that's the reason you come to the planet in the first place, is Ridley. You're following him because you want to take him out, and you literally uncover an entire world of secrets that the Chozo left behind for you. Samus didn't know this place existed. Samus didn't know that the people that took her in after her parents were killed by Ridley, she didn't know that any of this was here. She just stumbled upon it.
But the Chozo foretold that she would come.
The Chozo did foretell that she would come, and it's incredible because she loses her powers because of the explosion. But because of her arrival there and the Chozo being there, she's able to gain her stuff back, and that's another reason why I love Prime so much, because there's an explanation for it. Yeah. Sometimes there's no explanation to why did she show up to Planet Zebes in her Zero mission with no skills? Why? Nobody knows. I can go back and look in the comics, but I'm done. What do you think about the Omega Pirate? I really appreciate all of you who have stuck around long enough to listen to that, because I know I just kind of popped off right there. I'm sorry.
It's one of the more difficult fights in the game for sure. I remember getting my ass handed to me several times trying to fight it. Thankfully, I believe there's a safe station like right by it, so you don't have to go very far. I know that it also sends out a bunch of troopers, so you have to fight a bunch of space pirates, but you can take them out with power bombs. Not too big of a deal. I do like that he says, and you can make it out just barely, finish her to the troopers.
Hey, finish her. It's like the first time it's like harder charge. That's what it sounds like,
Yeah.
but he's saying finish her. And
Finish her.
I would say that's the only voice acting in the game.
Only that's like Mortal Kombat style, right? Finish her.
Yeah, but he's like it's struggling, desperate, and weak. Like he's scared. He's like this woman is no joke, bro. I can't take her by myself. You guys got to let me heal. Like I need my bros. Come on.
It's definitely a very intimidating fight, and of course I do love that you get the face on suit afterwards. It is the coolest looking power suit. I think it's the coolest alternate color scheme for Samus's power suit by far.
Either that or the suit of light, the light suit.
Well, that's why I was careful. I said it's the alternate color scheme, like a palette swap, because that's all these other. Now, as far as overall suit designs go, the light suit is fucking amazing, and the dark suit looks cool as well. I love that Prime 2 dared to actually make the suit look different, and Fusion as well.
Also, Corruption did it with the PE.
That's true.
Her shoulders more become
with the hazard shield, yeah.
Kind of changes the shape of her suit. But Fusion, if you play through Prime with the Fusion suit, it's
I'm playing my current playthrough in Hyper Mode with the Fusion suit, and I love how the suit changes colors depending on the Fusion suit changes colors based on which one you have. So the Phazon suit actually is the Omega Fusion suit. If you have the Fusion suit on, obviously the various suit and gravity suit match up, but
I really wanna play Metroid Prime in Hyper. But hey, we have beat this one up long enough. What is your number one, my friend? I am very eager to hear what this is.
All right. Well, this should be no surprise for anyone that listened to my top 5 boss battles bonus round not too long ago. Well, actually a while back, but my number one of the fights. This boss battle was, of course, on there, as it should be, right? And that is going to be the Quadraxis fight from Echoes.
Ooh, really?
I love this fight because, and I said this before, it forces you to use basically all of the skills that you'd acquired up to that point in the game. It's another multi-phase boss battle. I like how at the first phase of it, you have to boost ball around and lay some bombs, and then you got to shoot some super missiles at its joints. That part's fun. The second phase of the battle is arguably even cooler because you've got to switch to the Echo Visor, knock out the antennas. Super missiles do the job pretty well there too, and then you've got to climb up the legs of the body module that are on the ground using the spider ball, boost onto it, and then launch a few bombs into its sockets. It's a really cool fight, and you've got to time it just right so where you launch off of the spider ball tracks onto its head module that's floating around.
Okay. I like the Quadraxis fight a lot. It's definitely the hardest fight in the entire game as far as Echoes is concerned. The Emperor Ing being a close second, because I actually like how difficult that fight is. But Quadraxis is cool because it's multi-phased, and you don't just have to fight him; you have to fight like his head, and it's really cool because the entire time you're taking damage because there's absolutely no way to heal up. There's no safe zones in this fight, so you have to constantly damage him, like damage parts of his legs, so that you can get those golden health things again. It's really tough.
The entire thing takes place in the Dark World, kind of like the Boost Guardian fight, although fuck that fight.
I actually enjoy that fight. I don't hate that fight. Everybody hates that fight, but I just don't mind it. It's tough.
It's tough.
Is that why people hate it? Because it's so hard?
I love that Quadraxis is basically just a bigger version of those quad enemies that you fight in the Sanctuary Fortress and in the Ing Hive.
Yeah, he's like their dad.
Yeah, he's like their dad. He's like the daddy quad.
He's like, I got you, boys. What did I tell you about facing her alone?
And then you get probably the most badass beam in the entire Metroid series, the Annihilator beam, as a result of beating him. Yes, it uses both dark and light beam ammo, but at this point you have a lot of them, and you replenish beam ammo by using beam ammo. So Annihilator beam ammo just means you're basically never going to run out. Because it's whenever you hit something with it, you get both dark and light ammo back. So...
All right. Yeah, I hated the ammo. I just hate the ammo thing.
It doesn't bother me, like I said, because it's so easy to get back, and you can charge shot if you're out anyway.
Yeah, that is true. But I just, God. The beam system makes me so mad. But I like the Quadraxis fight a lot. It's really tough, and it kind of gives you just a sense of freedom, because now you've done all three. You've done all three of these energy. I forget what they're called, energy things. But and now you can focus on the end of the game, which is finding the 9 Sky Temple keys. And Quadraxis is a really good conclusion to that kind of 3-step process. And I think that was a really well done fight. It's difficult. I love launching off of the spider ball tracks on his legs and catching onto Quadrax's head so that you can plant a bomb in those little nodes.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. It's very well done. Energy controllers, that's what they're called. And it's a really good fight. It's really well done. The Annihilator Beam is dope because even if you're not locked onto something, it'll home in on it, so you basically don't have to worry about missing your shot, and you constantly get ammo. So that's
Quadraxis fight is badass.
it's very badass. Well, that's basically our top 5 lists. Now that we've covered those, we can take a little break and come back. And once we come back, we are going to hammer on Metroid Other M and why it's the worst game of all time. I mean, the worst game of the Metroid series.
Definitely the worst in the Metroid series.
I mean, okay, I'll say one thing before we go to break. I like the way it looks. And a lot of people don't because of the shoulder pads, but I love the sleekness of her torso. That's just because I'm attracted
and
to it.
that's the one they're still using in Smash Ultimate, right? It's pretty much a variation on the Other M suit.
It looks good. I like it.
Yeah.
I just want there to be a gravity suit that expands upon the 3D functions.
Actual gravity suit, yeah.
It adds layers. Okay, we'll talk about that when we come back, guys. Thanks for listening. Go get some water. Go get a snack or something, and we'll come back with our take of Metroid Other M.
I was a child.
Any objections, lady?
Always with something to prove. A chip on my shoulder. I felt that if I let my guard down, I would easily be broken. And beyond that, I was scared. I was so young. Young and naive.
Welcome back, everybody, to Collateral Gaming. This is actually the second time today we're going to record this because the first time got lost in space somewhere, which is great because we're going to be talking about one of our least favorite space games of all time after this break is Metroid Other M. I'm going to do that again. Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Welcome back to Collateral Gaming, everybody. We just got done talking about our top 5 battles in the Metroid series, and honestly, that's one of my favorite discussions I believe we've ever had. But now we're coming back to make ourselves sad. We are going to be talking about Metroid Other M, the good and the bad and the extremely ugly. So, kick us off, Ash. Your opinions on this game. Don't hold back, buddy.
Oh, man. Okay. So when Zach and I were kids, I think we liked this because recently we had a discussion about it. I think when we first started recording together, we were talking about Metroid and you were like, hey, do you like Other M? And I was like, yeah, that game's not nearly as bad as everyone says it is. Like, I can see why people don't think it's very much like the other Metroid games, but it wasn't a bad game, right? And then we both played it recently and we were like, yeah, this is hot garbage.
It is indeed hot garbage. Once we got a little older and a little wiser,
we've played some better games since then.
Oh,
some better Metroid games, especially.
Oh yeah, Samus Returns is an example of that. But I mean, I did pick a battle from this to be one of my top 5 battles. But I mean, come on, dude, the Metroid Queen is awesome. Even though that game is terrible, they did a good job with the cinematography.
The
And,
Metroid
like-
Queen battle actually is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm surprised I didn't really want to talk about it in my top 5 list because I played through it more recently when I beat the game, and I beat the game 100%. It's relatively short. I mean, I can't say I didn't enjoy myself at all. There are parts of the game that are fun. It's just goes by very, very quickly. And there are some concepts of the game that I like the idea of that just don't work in execution.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, this game kind of came with a whole gimmick, right? What they wanted to do was bring the player. This game, by the way, is the second game that was released for the Wii on the second Metroid game that was released on the Wii, besides, of course, the Metroid Prime trilogy and the new play control Metroid Prime and Metroid Prime 2 in Japan.
Yeah.
But following Metroid Prime 3, the first game developed for the Wii, instead of using the nunchuck, they wanted to go to a single Wii remote design. So you've got a Wii remote and you're holding it sideways, which they liken to an NES controller. And sure enough, the controls feel that way. But did anyone really want Metroid controls to go back to the Nintendo era?
Nah, man. Like you said in a previous discussion, a lot like this that has nothing to do with what we're talking about now. You said that the Super Nintendo is really the era that people wanted to relive because of Super Metroid and the impact that it had on the community and its fans. I think that trying to give an NES feel with this game while also including a first-person perspective in which Samus can't move just completely destroyed this series' reputation, and that's why it's kind of gone dark for a few years. But we eventually got Federation Force, whatever the hell that chooses to be.
I don't even want to talk about that. I don't even want to play it. It's not a Metroid game. It's a spinoff.
Yeah, where you fight Samus at the very end, dude.
Yeah.
Weird.
But yeah, like you said, this game not only does it feature the Wii remote sideways, but the gimmick of the game is that you point the remote at the screen, kind of more similar to what you would see in the Prime trilogy. And I think they were trying to appease that crowd of gamers, fans of the franchise as well with this. But you would point the Wii remote, but like you said, you stay completely still, and it's the only way to fire missiles in the game. It's actually just makes the game more frustrating. They added kind of the scanning components, but all of the lore that was like the best part of scanning things in Metroid Prime is gone. The map system in Metroid Prime, which would allow you to see, which was an entire 3D rotatable map with room names, completely gone in favor of a top-down map that is honestly just more confusing.
And terrible, dude. It's so, oh my god. The locations of like extra or pickups, it's annoying.
Yeah, they wanted to do a return to form with Metroid, and I get that. And I was happy to see that too, but let's do a return to form of Super Metroid.
Turn to form of a fun title.
Right. And that's not to say that this game doesn't pay its homages to Super Metroid, because it does. The very first opening cutscene is, in fact, the ending of Super Metroid, where the baby, the Super Metroid dies and passes on somehow the Hyper Beam to Samus, and then Samus defeats Mother Brain in this giant form. And you know what? It actually looks better than ever here. I'd be down if this was the canonical version of that scene, because it looks gorgeous.
Yeah, dude, that's what, when I first started playing Other M, that opening cutscene made me feel like I was about to play the greatest game of all time. And it was
The graphics are great
that opening
for this
cutscene
game.
is so
Yeah.
they are, but it's just not the kind of story element that you'd expect
Yeah.
from an opening cutscene like that. Even though the opening cutscene did have a shitty one-liner, "Time to go." That was just
Yeah.
Why?
Mother. Yeah, so one of our main complaints, of course, is the story. Like I said, the game looks good. It even plays good. The controls are a little wonky. And I know, like in a previous episode, I mentioned that the Super Metroid controls feel antiquated, and then the physics do as well. But those are still masterable, right? People can actually get used to those controls. These, not as much, but they're not horrible. Mainly, I think the biggest problem with this game, honestly, is the story.
Sir,
And the
100%.
gameplay's just not good enough to to outweigh that. But what are some of your problems with the plot?
For one, I don't like the fact that Adam sacrifices himself for no reason at all. Literally at all. He's a dick the entire game, and then he just kills himself, basically. So it's like that's exactly what it is. I know that's kind of like a bit of a stab, but I kind of wish that we could have explored Sector Zero, destroyed it ourselves, taken everything out, and then gotten out in a badass fashion, because that is Metroid style.
Yes.
That is Metroid style, 100%. Samus is just this ruthless galactic hunter, and she's not going to be stopped by anything. In this game, she looks like a toothpick. In this game, she's like a fairy princess that floats away magically using the screw attack that she authorizes herself, even though she's relied on him the entire game to authorize items for her. It makes no sense.
Okay, what if, here's an idea, just thought about it. What if Sector Zero was detached as a result of Samus fighting in a boss battle? So Samus goes there to kick some ass, right? Experiences some Metroid, sees some Metroid, starts fighting this boss. It causes enough, defeats the boss. It causes enough damage to the station from the inside to detach it. So you hear Adam saying that same line in your earpiece, like, hey, so Sector Zero is designed to, or maybe foreshadows it early on, Sector Zero is designed to detach itself. So you need to get out of there. And so there's, like you said, that escape sequence Samus runs through, and then at the end, she sees Adam, and she's in a pickle, and she's almost not able to escape, but he sacrifices himself then to save her.
That would have been cool. But
that would have made more sense.
It would have made more sense, but it would have also just tackled on to the fact that Samus needs help. She doesn't.
Yeah, but at least it would feel less pandering and misogynistic as him stunning her to save the day for her. So, and we mentioned this in our previous discussion, this game obviously panders to a Japanese market. The Western audience is actually more... Metroid appeals more to the Western audience than it does to its Eastern audience. It's not as popular in Japan. That's why we don't get as many Metroid games. It's actually been hugely popular in the US. I mean, a US studio developed the Prime series, Retro Studios, and the results speak for themselves. They did a bang job. But I think maybe Nintendo wanted to appeal more to its home market again. And so there are elements of that in the story of the whole, like respect for your superiors. It just doesn't translate very well in a universe where with the context of Japanese culture, it works, but this isn't Japanese culture. This is intergalactic culture,
Yeah, 100%. And plus, in American culture, that seems extremely misogynistic. But
yes,
that's because we live on two different sides of the same coin.
We do. And this game needed to appeal to an international audience as well, so you have to keep that in mind. And the problem is that it's just a complete mess. Not only that, but Adam's just a dick. They butchered his character in this game. We were set up for this awesome character that was explored in Metroid Fusion, and I like how Other M tries to fill the gaps with that and tries to do things like an added nightmare fight that we didn't really need, but it's Nightmare. It's cool to see again, or beforehand. But the main problem is that how it chooses to address those problems that it set up. That something that probably would have made better for like a flashback sequence of Adam's sacrificing his life becomes a core narrative element here. And the problem is that Adam is not set up as a sympathetic character whatsoever. I mean, in the first place, one of the hugest complaints about this game is the whole authorization system, right?
Yes, dude. You can't do that. You have to make it to where Samus finds it.
It gives the player the sense of, hey, I discovered something. I explored and I got this. And again, this is one of those concepts that on paper sounded cool to me, and I was kind of hyped up for, oh, okay, it's a neat way of explaining how Samus doesn't have all her abilities at the beginning of the game. Instead of losing them or just no explanation at all, we get, okay, Samus is deauthorized. But some of the items make no sense. Why would Samus disable her Various suit, whose only purpose is to defend her, to provide additional protection against enemies and against superheated areas? And why the fuck does Adam sit there and watch her walk halfway through the pyrosphere before he fucking tells her to activate the Varia feature? Why doesn't Samus speak up? Hey, Adam, I'm losing energy. Can you let me enable it, or just enable it herself, because it's not a fucking weapon? I get not being able to use power bombs or maybe even super missiles, but a defensive feature? Why?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You had an explanation for it.
Yeah, I'm not going to go back through that because it sounds stupid. It sounds stupid in my head. It sounded a lot cooler in my head and a lot more sensical, but I'm just not going to say that. Basically, my whole spiel was going to be about Adam testing Samus, but that's stupid because Adam just doesn't care. He's just a dick.
He's just a dick. And also, he decides to split up his team, none of which are capable of defeating anything. They literally, Samus is fights this boss battle, and is the only reason that they make it out alive against this easy boss at the beginning of the game. These guys are completely and woefully unprepared. I mean, I like the whole murder mystery angle of the game with the deleter and all that, except for the fact that it's dropped after the first half of the game.
It really is, bro. It's so pathetic. It's actually pathetic. I hate it so much. They should have at least stuck with one story element that made sense. You know, it would have been cool to find out, and Samus could take them down, or at least arrest them. Because that would have been awesome, because, I mean, for all we know, it could have been Adam, and they set it up to make it look like James.
Right? Yeah, and that's the thing, is the deleter's identity is never revealed. Through process of elimination, you can figure out it's James Pierce, but it's not even implicit to the narrative. This game requires you to fill in so many gaps yourself that, you know, to me, a plot hole is something that is not answered implicitly in the narrative, right?
Yes.
And so if you there's room for, okay, let the audience figure it out, but when there's whole elements of the story that just they're not even alluded to, like if you wanted to go the PTSD angle with Samus's personality and explain why she's such a weak character in this game, at least focus more on that, mention it, and actually feature a badass redemption moment at some point in the story.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense the way they laid it out. It made it to where it leaves plot hole after plot hole. I mean, what the hell is Little Birdie?
It's Ridley.
Why?
It's a Ridley clone.
It's stupid. He looks like a freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger Ridley, dude. He's like, I am here to fight you. Oh! It just doesn't make sense. He just pops up and he looks like a buffed up dragon from Shrek. It's terrible. I hate his design. The fight is cool though. I like when he takes her head, slams it against the wall, and drags it across. That's pretty intense.
The cinematics of the fight are cool. If I wasn't just pissed off that Samus is freezing up for no fucking reason. Okay, she has PTSD, but here's the thing: she's faced Ridley half a dozen times before this at this point in the timeline, right? So why is she freezing up? Is it because of the baby? You know, like, but. Still, it's just such a mess. It completely butchers her character. She doesn't feel like the feminist icon that she's supposed to be. She feels like a woman that needs saving by Anthony, by Adam.
100%. It's pathetic the route they went. Like,
how are you going to build up Samus Aran, the original video game female icon? This predates Lara Croft. This was the surprise female icon, right?
Yes, 100%. Came out of nowhere, and she was badass, and they made her look like a weakling. The way they did it. I wish they would have just, at the very least, allow Samus. What if they gave the player like unlock tokens where they could choose what ability they.
That could be cool.
That could have been something they could have done with this game if they were going to leave it up to authorization. Like at least give us something decent to work with. As I said in my top 5 boss list, I love the Queen fight. It's really cool, but that's not the end of the game. It should be. Honestly, the end of the game is garbage the way they do it.
The Fantoon fight is cool.
Soldiers,
but
the Fantoon fight is cool because they just leave it to her in her suit and you don't see her. She doesn't say anything, and that's why it's good.
See, that's what I guess they need to realize. I'm okay with having voice acting. I'm okay with even diving into more of Samus's character, but I think most of the time she needs to retain that silent badass aura.
Yeah, whoever wrote the dialogue for her monologues in Fusion should have wrote them then, that, because that's cool.
Yes, that works. You know, and Fusion is also a very linear game, and a game that Other M seems to take a lot of inspiration from. Like I said, they've even copied the world structure and the map structure, right, from Metroid Fusion. What?
And the Nightmare fight.
and the nightmare fight, but
Kinda
and even
pathetic.
the linearity, but where linearity works in Fusion because it builds an atmosphere of fear and tension. It doesn't work in Other M because Other M is even more restrictive. They lock off entire sectors of the game, and this is a metric game. You're supposed to go back and backtrack and find things and take your time, and they don't let you do it, and they hold your hand every goddamn step. They tell you exactly where to go. I mean, at least Fusion once in a while lets you stop and try to figure shit out with no hints.
I know it's honestly, if we continue to beat it, it's gonna be like beating a dead horse. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
exactly.
just don't like this game. The navigation booths are cool. I like that. Data recording and shield restoration sequence activated. Sequence complete. Process successful.
Yeah,
Shut up. Thank you.
this game has a lot of problems, and more than we could probably get into in a 30-minute segment. So we'll hold off on beating more of that dead horse later when we compare it with other Metroid games.
It doesn't compare with other Metroid games.
What are your final thoughts?
It's a poo-poo game with cool graphics and nice finishers.
There you go.
And the abilities all look great. Like, the game looks great. Everything about the game is beautiful. The graphics are wonderful. The story sucks and it ruins it for me.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
acquisition of items could be 10 times better.
I will say it's a decent action game as like a standalone game. I say decent. It has some cool ideas. I like kind of the direction that they went, and I'm glad that they explored a little bit more of that in Samus Returns with the melee counterattacks, because the sense moves, being able to charge up quickly during a sense move, the finishers and the overhead shots, those are cool. Samus fucking jumps on enemies' backs and shoots their brains out. She can dodge quickly and shoot out, and there's some neat ideas here. But the game just feels not like a Metroid game. And it just kind of infuriates you that it's using the Metroid name.
It really does. It's not worth the title.
Yeah.
It's really not. Her suit looks okay. I just wish they would have actually given her a different color for the Various suit, or the...
Well, the Various suit changes color, but the Gravity suit doesn't. It's just like a purple aura.
It's an outline. It's awful.
The suit's cool though. It's the model that they ended up going even into Smash Ultimate is I believe a variation on the Other M Various suit. A variation on the Various suit, if you will.
A variation.
A variation. Yeah. But guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review and feedback on your platform of choice. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Check out our YouTube channel. We're uploading video stuff there. We have also got Patreon exclusives. If you subscribe to any one of our tiers on our Patreon, you will get access to Let's Play video game commentaries, including one that I recently started working on Metroid Fusion. In fact, I just uploaded a part 2 of that episode, of that playthrough. Part 1 is available for free for everyone, but you got to subscribe to listen to the rest, as well as all of our other Let's Play video game commentaries.
Yeah.
We're going to be probably starting live streaming now that Zach's got his PC, right?
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Ooh, yeah.
I'm excited about that. If you haven't checked out Metroid Fusion Parts 1 and 2, I plan to have this all kind of out together at the same time. Part 2 should be out, if not when this is out, soon after. It's 420 month, guys. It's April, so we're blazing it all month. And we're going to be talking about Minecraft as our 420 special.
Oh, yeah.
So a perfect game
Yes,
to
sir.
just,
As I
to
take
just get high to and just explore.
Oh, yeah, bro. As I take a fat rip of the cart, I will
Hell
say
yeah.
adieu to my friends who listen to Collateral Gaming. Thank you for listening to us. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Also,
we appreciate you guys. What?
Also, hit us up on social media. What are some of your favorite moments from the Metroid series? They don't have to be just battles, like cinematic cutscenes, yeah. Items, like, talk to us.
Let us
Let us know, man. Hit us up on Facebook, Instagram. Ash and I think, are both on Twitter.
Yes.
So I'm at Mr. Gio96. Good luck spelling Gio. I'm not going to tell you.
You can find me at ScruffyC, and I believe on Instagram at scruffy.chancellor, if I'm not mistaken. Or it could be ScruffyC now. Just try them both. Anyway, yeah, you can hit me up anywhere. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Hit up C Gaming Podcast everywhere. Stay tuned. Also, we're going to have a 420 focused bonus round. And later this month, we're going to be collaborating with Collateral Cinema in celebration of the new Mortal Kombat movie coming out this month on the 23rd. We're going to do an At the Movies review on that episode, or on that movie. And just, spoiler-free impressions, a quick review. To tie into that, Collateral Gaming is also releasing something on our side in collaboration. We're going to be talking about Mortal Kombat 11 at the end of this month. I plan to have a Mortal Kombat-themed bonus round to kind of coincide with that as well. So we've got a lot of stuff coming up the rest of this month. Starting the following month, we'll go back to our numbered structure, but stay tuned for all the content, guys. If you have weed, smoke it. If you got it, you got it. Whether it's dabs or joints or blunts. Hey man, if you even want to do some psychedelics or some shit, in moderation.
I will say, we are not specifically telling you to do psychedelics. That is something that you have to make the choice to do. Be safe if you choose to do that. It can be dangerous if you are not in the right frame of mind. So we love you guys. And thank you so much for listening to us ramble about Samus Aran, because we love her so much. Is it Aran or Aaron?
I've always pronounced it Aaron, but
Aaron, Samus Aran, that sounds better.
I think
Samus Aran sounds like the country.
I think they say Aaron in this game too with the dialogue, so it's kind of confirmed. And it's actually Zebes, not Zebes.
Oh, I've always said Zebes.
I've always saw it as Zebes, like Thebes or whatever, but
or
I don't
Zebes.
know. Zebes.
Planet Zebes.
Alrighty, this is just derailing. So that being said, I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And I'm Daffy Duck. Just kidding. I'm Zach Gio.
We are Collateral Gaming bonus round. We are out.
Howdy like a lot.
Collateral Gaming is a Collateral Media podcast. All music and game clips are owned by their respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.